Last week we talked about the first part of our verse of the year, which is God is working in you. And we spent a lot of time on those 5 words and why those 5 words are so important. That God, the creator of heaven and earth, God who knows you better than anybody else in the world knows you, God who loves you more than anybody else, that's who's working in you. God is working in you. He's not going to work in you. He's not going to wait till you get your degree done. He's not going to wait till you get a certain habit out of your life. He's not going to wait till you get stuff together. He's working in you right now if you're a follower of Christ. And he's working. It is a process. He's not done. He's not finished. He won't ever be done. He won't be finished because he's always working in you. He's working in you, which means that he's taking your gifts, your attributes, your nature, your characteristics, and he's working those because that's how he designed you to be. And then he's working in you, not just all of us, but this is individual as well. He is working in each of you. So that's what we talked about last week. If you get that, it'll transform your life. If you really grasp that and see the magnitude of the God of the universe working in you. But it raises the question, why? Why is God working in you? Seems like God's pretty busy, got a lot to do. Why is he working in you and why is he working in me? I think that's the key question. And so if you look at it, it comes down to the core of our faith. First, he accepts us. He accepts us as we are. He takes us in as we are. He doesn't say, get yourself cleaned up, get yourself together, stop doing that, and then I will accept you. No, he accepts you just as you are. He not only accepts you, but he adopts you. He takes you into the family. You know, once you're in the family, you can't be kicked out of the family. So he takes you into the family as our own, as his own, and when God adopts us, we are part of his family, and that's how much he loves us. And then he changes us. He changes us because he sees the potential in each one of us. Now, if you put that in more human characteristics, you all were accepted to Belhaven. You made an application. We looked at your background and your abilities, and we accepted you, not because you're finished, but because of the potential we saw in you. If you graduate and you're the same person you are the day you walked in here as a first-year student, we failed because we haven't helped to bring about change in your life. And Jesus accepts us, he adopts us, and then he changes us because he wants the best for us. God is working in us to change us. So how does he do that? That's what we want to look at today. How does God do it? He gives us the desire and the power. That's how he changes us, to do what's pleasing to him. My friend Dolphus, you heard from today, talked about this deep desire in his life to attack racism in the churches of Mississippi. He wouldn't let it go. I worked with him for years and years and years. That's all he'd talk about. It was such a desire that God put deep in his soul, he wouldn't let go of it. And God gave him the power to do it. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on today. But the power of God's timing, he talked about that experience at First Baptist Church when he was allowed to speak at First Baptist. I was with him in those days. And that was a huge deal. That may not seem like a huge deal to you, but in 1996 when that happened, that was a huge deal that he was allowed to speak in First Baptist Church. God gave the power because God's timing is never wrong. Sometimes it feels to us like it's barely on time, but it's never wrong. It's never late. So how do we deal with this whole question of desire and power to do his will? Well, the world and sin in our lives drives us to desires that are not honoring to God, and desires that really are fruitless in keeping them as the center of our life. But we tend to, because that's what the world does, and that's what sin draws us to. Desires like money, Desires like money. Here's the thing about money, if that's a desire of your life, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to have more money and to have some comfort and all that goes with that. And I hope some of you make a whole bunch of money and give it to Belhaven, and then we can do some really good things with it. So do that. But there's nothing wrong with it, but if it's a desire that drives you and your goal and fulfillment is to be rich, there are two things that are going to happen. First of all, it's going to set your standard of self-worth. And the second thing is related to that there's never enough. So your self-worth is always going to feel inadequate because there's never enough. I don't care how much money you make, there's never enough. You may think, well, if I could just graduate and make $50,000, everything's be good. No, it won't. Well, if I could just get a promotion and I can make $100,000, everything would be good. No, it won't. If I could just make $250,000 a year, I am set. I got this thing. No, you don't. I don't care how much money you have. It's never enough. I got kind of amused at the Queen of England a few years ago, complaining to Parliament. She's one of the richest people in the entire world, complaining to Parliament they didn't give her enough money and things were too tight. Are you kidding? You got billions and billions and billions of dollars. Money is a desire that sin uses to distract us from what God wants to do in our lives. Well, maybe another desire is fame. A lot of people want to be famous. A lot of people want to be famous. Have you noticed this common characteristic about famous people? They're unhappy. They're unhappy. It's amazing how hard they work to be famous, and then as soon as they become famous, they want to shut the world off so they can have their privacy. It's a fool's errand to try to become famous, although the world tells us there's great value in being famous and being known. Well, maybe the desire is power. I've worked with enough Washington politicians to know that once they get into that circle of power in Washington, their head gets turned and they begin to corrupt their life in ways they never dreamed they would have if they had not had the desire for power. And it's a shame to see so many lives crashed and burned in seeking power. Well, maybe it's happiness. The world says, yeah, we ought to be happy. Well, here's the problem with happiness. That's circumstantial. So if the circumstances are all right, yeah, I'm happy until the circumstances change, and then I'm not. And the circumstances will always change. We'll never be satisfied. And because we'll never be satisfied, what do? We self-medicate. So because you're not happy, you self-medicate. You do it with alcohol, you do it with drugs, you do it with sex, you do it with adrenaline. You do the things that help make you happy, and they don't make you happy. It's a fool's errand. That's the desire the world tells us to have. That's the desire Satan tells us to have. That's the desire that's driven by sin. Jesus has a different desire for us. Completely different. To see the world through his eyes. When we see the world through his eyes, that's when life takes on meaning and significance and fulfillment, and you can do something that matters with your life. When you begin to see the world through his eyes. How did Jesus see the world? He saw value in every person, every single person. When he was living in the time of the Roman Empire, women and children were totally worthless, completely worthless. Cast them off, it didn't matter. Roman citizens were all that mattered, men. And what did Jesus say? Let the children come to me. He had women who worked with him in his ministry. Jesus changed the whole perception of the value of a person because he saw the value in everybody that he created and everybody he loves. He brought grace to people. He offered grace to sinners. You remember the story of the woman who met him at the well. And she came and began to tell him his story, and she'd had several husbands and divorced them all, and then she'd had a number of affairs, and she was living with a guy then who wasn't her husband. And what did Jesus say? He listened to it all, and he said, don't do that anymore. Go. Don't sin anymore. He didn't beat her up. He didn't say, what's wrong with you? He didn't give her a lecture. He just said, go. Don't sin anymore. Grace on top of grace. What did Jesus do as he saw the world with hypocrisy? He hated it. He talks more about hypocrisy in the church than almost any other topic in the Bible in his ministry. Jesus hated hypocrisy, and he would call it out in church leaders or in other people. Jesus invested in people long term. It was not a transactional relationship. If you were connected with Jesus, you were in for the duration. You know, every other religion in the world is built on transaction. What I do for God is what I get from God. And God's not going to do anything for me if I don't give something to him. Every other religion is built on that premise. True Christianity is the only religion that understands that God's grace is free. And because of that, he invests in us long term. When we mess up, when we disappoint, whenever, he stays with us. He doesn't run away. He saw the world by giving love to people who culturally were not accepted to love. Great example, Zacchaeus. You should probably sang that story in Sunday school. Zacchaeus come down from the tree. Well, Zacchaeus was a tax collector. He was not only a tax collector, he was a Jewish tax collector, which means he turned on his own community to extort money out of them for a Roman government that was totally evil. And people hated the tax collector. And as Jesus was going down the street, he sees Zacchaeus up in the tree and he says, "Come on down. Let's go to your house. Let's have a chat. Let's have a nice time. I want to get to know you." That's who Jesus is. That's who he sees the world through his eyes. He saw the world through his understanding of his importance of his relationship with his Father. That always took precedence over everything. He understood the world in terms of eternity, that this life is not the end of life, but there is an eternal life yet to come. That is seeing the world through the eyes of Jesus. And when we have that desire, that's when everything begins to change. Higher desires, not money, fame, power, and happiness. Instead, let's substitute worth for money. Worth of the value of who you are and the value of what you bring into relationships and the value of what you can do in service to others. Let's substitute belonging for fame, to be connected. Jesus put us in community on purpose. He connected us by family and other communities, and to value those belonging instead of individual fame. How about we substitute influence for power? Power doesn't last very long, but influence, like Dolphus, goes way beyond your life. The influence of Dolphus Weary in this state will last for generations. But if you tried to do it with power, it wouldn't last at all. Wouldn't have gone this far. How about instead of happiness, significance? Happiness is fleeting. Significance is forever. If you don't desire what God desires, it's because you don't know him. You only know about him. Let me say that again. I'm going to put it on the screen. If you don't desire what God desires, and your desires are those things of the world, and you can't find the desires of God, it's because you don't know him. You only know about him. I want to challenge you to strengthen your relationship with Christ. And here's how I'm going to challenge you to do it. There was a Cambridge researcher this summer who came out with a study. I thought it was really interesting. He said a really close friendship, a really important relationship, takes 9 minutes a day to sustain it. 9 minutes a day to sustain it. So if you connect for 9 minutes, whether that be a text or a phone or whatever it may be, 9 minutes a day will keep your relationship where it was. If you miss 9 minutes, your relationship quality goes down by 1% for every 9 minutes you miss. He said, now you don't have to do it every day. Maybe you talk every other day. And so you talk for 18 minutes instead of 9 minutes. Or maybe it's once a week you talk for an hour, you connect for an hour instead of 9 minutes. But keeping that relationship solid has to be an ongoing process with a certain amount of time, or that relationship deteriorates. Well, think about your relationship. What's the people who are most important in your life? Probably kind of how you do it. Probably kind of how you do it. If you take 9 minutes a day and invest it in your relationship with Christ, what would happen? I'm guessing a lot of you don't. You're busy, you know about God, but you're not deepening your relationship with God. Take 9 minutes a day. It's in Scripture, it's in prayer, and it's in prayer that's not just a whole list of stuff I need and stuff I want. That's okay, you can do that. But who He is to you and your connection with Him. If you did it 9 minutes a day, your relationship would sustain. If you did 18 minutes a day, I can guarantee you it would improve. Build deeper your relationship with Christ if you want to find His desires in your life instead of the desires of the world, which are a fool's errand and will never be achieved. But desire leads to power. Desire leads to power. Money, you never have enough. Fame, you never have enough. Power, happiness, these things are fleeting. So if you get rid of those and instead you have the desire for what Christ wants, then you have the power to accomplish those things. And where are those accomplished? They're accomplished when God is working in us. There are fruits of the Spirit, and we read about them, that He describes the fruits of the Spirit, what our life will look like when we are growing in Christ. And this pretty much describes Dolphus. I know him extremely well. This pretty much describes him. These fruits of the Spirit. They're things like love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Are those the things that describe you? If they are, you have the power to do what is pleasing to God. If those are not the things that describe you, you don't yet have the power. God has to work in you to transform you, to give you His desires, and out of that you get the power. Why was Dolphus invited to speak at First Baptist Church in Jackson, Mississippi, who had never had an African-American person speak from the pulpit? Because Dolphus lived that way. Every time, in every situation. That's who Dolphus was, a person who lived the fruits of the Spirit. And if he hadn't, he never would have been invited. That's where the power comes from. So you can have God's desires, and this is where you get the power. Or if you stay with the sinful desires, what's that look like? Self-centered and judgmental, harsh, reactionary, aggressive, legalistic, cynical, and gossipy. Which one describes you? Better yet, which do you want to be? Which do you want to be? The fruits of the Spirit are available to each one of us when we will understand the magnitude of who God is, that He's working on us, He'll give us the desire, and then we have the power of these fruits of the Spirit. When you're filled with the fruits of the Spirit, you can bring about transformation in your life and the people around you. You can do the kinds of things that Dolphus did. And when you are not, and your list is the one on the right, your world becomes smaller and smaller and smaller the farther you go, because you push out people, you fight with people, you get angry over things, you're selfish over stuff, you gossip about stuff, and after a while, you're pretty much alone. And that's the course you're headed for, unless we capture this desire and power of God in our lives to build the fruits of the Spirit in us. What an invitation that God of heaven and earth is working in us, giving us the desire and the power to do what pleases Him. And what is it that pleases Him? Well, our song said it. Seek justice. Love mercy. Walk humbly. That's what pleases Him. Seek justice. You know, there is so much hurt in the world. But so much of the hurt is just inflicted by one person or another person. And if instead we would seek justice for everybody around us, we could eliminate so much hurt. Love mercy. Jesus gave grace on top of grace. You want grace? Give it in the same way you wish you could receive it. Walk humbly with your God. Humbly is a dependence on God, realizing that every good thing in your life comes from him, and there is nothing of value without him. Seek justice, love mercy, walk humbly. And starting next week, we're going to talk about Christmas. And when Jesus came into the world, born into the time of the Roman Empire, that's exactly what he came for. To seek justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly. He showed us how to do it. And that's what we're going to talk about starting next week as we get into Christmas. Let's pray together our benediction. No eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has conceived what God has prepared for those who love him. Thanks for being here. That code's coming up that you need. Make sure you get that thing done right, and I will see you next week.